Welcome to the Power 2 Pod. My name is Andy,
And I'm Jason.
and today we're going to talk about the CBS Sports Playoff picks that they released. Then we're going to talk about the top five mascots in each conference, and then the Penn State Minute and Georgia Minute is what's on the docket today. So without further ado, let's get started. Jumping into the CBS Power Playoff picks, they've got Georgia number one, Ohio State number two, Utah number three, Clemson number four, Oregon number five, Texas number six, Alabama number seven, Ole Miss number eight, Missouri number nine, Notre Dame at 10, Penn State at 11, and Boise State at 12. What pops out to you or based on the CBS picks?
Um, I like Georgia at the top with winning the SEC. I think they're obviously the favorite to win. And then Ohio State's a huge favorite coming into this year with all the talent that they had brought in this offseason. A couple ones that I don't really agree with is mainly Missouri. They had a really good year last year. I think they had like the most draft picks taken this last year since they've had it in like 2008 or something like that. It's almost been 20 years since they had that many draft picks. I think they're destined to have a down year from last year. So I don't know if they would, if they're really going to make the playoffs this year. I mean, their coach is really good. He's an up and coming coach. I think becoming popular. And he's a really good coach. But I think they're just due for a down year.
Yeah, I think it's a numbers game because basically you only have 11 picks for the Power Five because you got the group of five getting the 12th seed. If you look at how CBS has it picked out, you have five SEC teams getting in out of 11, three Big Ten teams, one from the ACC, one from the Big 12, and then Notre Dame as the independent. Looking at the SEC and 16 teams in that conference now, five's a lot of teams to get in. That's a lot of teams going 10-2. Does a team sneak in at 10-3? I don't know, but if you just look at the last few years, Penn State's been 10-2 last couple of years, and they stay at that 12-10 range. So you almost have to look at it as you almost have to go 10-2 to be on that outside tier of just barely making it in. If you go based on their picks, it looks like they have Georgia winning over Texas in the SEC championship game, Ohio State winning over Oregon in the Big Ten. Then they have Utah and Clemson winning the Big 12 and the ACC. And they have Boise State coming in as the group of five winner. If it plays out how CBS says, you'd have first timers making the playoffs in Utah, Ole Miss, Missouri, Penn State, Boise State, and Memphis, and kind of two big programs that are falling off. You'd have Michigan missing and Florida State missing. So you'd be having, the number one team last year and the number five team completely falling out of the 12-team playoff, which would kind of be surprising just based off how much talent those teams have. If I'm, there's nothing too outlandish here. I think it'll be hard to get five teams in for the SEC though.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think you're going to more see maybe, I don't know, maybe see three from the top three from the SEC, top three from the Big Ten, or I mean, maybe you could get 3 and 4 in that way. Um, I really don't see. I have Ole Miss making the SEC championship game against Georgia. I don't think Texas. They have to travel up north to Michigan. Second game, I think second or third game of the season. And they just have a really hard schedule. And they lost a lot of talent making the playoffs last year. The NFL draft just took a lot of players away from that team. So I have Ole Miss going to the championship game against Georgia. I also have Oregon over Ohio State. I just think Dan Lanning will kind of outcoach Ryan Day in the championship game. And then one of my kind of underrated picks and teams I like this year is Oklahoma State. Out of the Big 12, I feel like the Big 12 is kind of up to grabs for probably like 4 to 5 teams, just because they're just equally not as good as Big Ten teams and SEC teams. So I think Utah is favored just because they've been a good team in the past in the Pac-12, and they have a really good defense usually. But Oklahoma State returns like 20 to 21 players. They're bringing back Ollie Gordon. So I like them to at least make the championship game. Whether they win it or not, it's a coin flip.
Yeah, I think just looking at the teams in the Big 12, I think the Big 12, I mean they're essentially they're a mid-tier conference basically. There's no high-end teams in that conference. So I think it's going to be really hard to get two teams in that conference into the college football playoff with the big dogs of the SEC and the Big Ten. ACC, I could see maybe getting two in. You have Syracuse with Kyle McCord. Their schedule plays out super easy. So you could see Syracuse kind of going 10-2, 11-1 with just how their schedule breaks out, and Fran Brown going up there from Georgia. I kind of see it breaking out 4 SEC teams, 4 Big Ten teams. I think one Big Ten team you have to look out for that's not in their list besides Michigan is Iowa. Unfortunately, I know Iowa is terrible to watch because of the style of play they have, but I mean, I've peeked at their schedule, and if they could just get average, even below average, quarterback play with their schedule, and if their defense is as good as last year, they could easily go 11-1. And if you have Iowa 11-1, say you have Ohio State 11-1, Oregon 11-1, Penn State 10-2 or 11-1, how do you keep those 4 teams out with those records? But I don't think there's a way for the Big Ten to get 5 teams in. I mean, if it plays out this way, how they have it, I mean, obviously they have Texas beating Michigan, and that's part of the reason why Texas is in, Michigan's out. Um, but I could see a path for 5 in the SEC, but that's a lot of teams in the playoff.
Yeah, and like I said, I could see 4 from the SEC, and then it'd be 4 from the Big Ten, and then 2 from the ACC.
4,
I think
8,
that's
then yeah, you
plausible.
get yeah, you'd get 2 from either the Big 12 or the ACC. And like I said, the Big 12 after Utah, Oklahoma State, I mean, Kansas State's in there, but I think you're gonna get to the eye test, and the Big 12's just not gonna pass the eye test with the teams that are in that conference. You know, they got they are definitely the weakest conference of the Power Four, without a doubt.
Right, and that's why I think the ACC might get 2 in, whether it's Clemson, Florida State. Miami could be good. Their schedule is pretty easy. If Cristobal can get something going with the recruits he's got coming in, and then North Carolina is always up there too. So I could see the ACC getting 2 in.
Yeah, and like I said, the 2 teams you kind of got to look out for that nobody's really talking about based on schedule is Syracuse and Iowa. I think they are doing them. They got the, yeah, I don't want to say easy because nothing in college football is easy, but they definitely got the better the draws of the new conference schedules.
Yeah, and I was curious on what Wisconsin's schedule looks like because Luke Fickell's going into I think his 3rd or 4th season there at Wisconsin. I think he could start getting the players that fit his scheme a lot better. And Wisconsin used to be a powerhouse on that west side of that division. So I could see them if their schedule aligns. I could see them being a contender to get like a really low 11 or 10 seed spot in that playoff.
Well, I know they pull Alabama this year in non-conference, which
Really?
I mean, if you're ever going to get Bama, this might be the year with Saban leaving.
Yeah.
But yeah, they Wisconsin pulls Alabama, and I know they at least get Penn State. So I don't know if they pull Ohio State, Oregon, Michigan. I don't know if they pull how many of the big dogs they pull right offhand, but I know for sure they get Alabama, and I know for sure they get Penn State. So you got to look at that being at least two teams with more talent than them. Not necessarily that they won't win those games, but that's definitely two teams at least that have more talent than Wisconsin. Um, and then as far as the group of five goes with Boise State, I think the other teams you have to kind of look out for would be Memphis, maybe Utah State. I don't know if Liberty can, go undefeated again and squeak in. They would need a lot of help from some of these other group of five teams because Liberty just won't have the strength of schedule to get up there. Do you have anybody to look out for that group of five bid?
Yeah, UNLV, I think, had a really good year last year. And, they could really bounce back and have another really good year. But outside of that, Boise State's always been, above average team over there in the Mountain West. And I know Memphis, I think they have like like fifth year starting quarterback. So he's like a super veteran to lead that offense. I just think it's either Boise State or UNLV.
No, we also can't forget about Tulane. They've been pretty good the last couple years, so you can always, keep them in mind too for that group of five bid. It'll be interesting to see how it all plays out. Of course, that's why they play the games. But I don't see too much crazy coming out of the CBS playoff picks that are here. Um, and once we dive more into the individual teams and their schedules, and I think we'll have a better idea of who we're picking going into this next season. You have anything to add for the playoffs right now?
Another one would be Notre Dame. Like I said, that one's a really hard one for me because I feel like they kind of have a easily schedule going, the first half, and then the second half they kind of go through kind of a gauntlet of games to where, if you tell me that Notre Dame is a 3 or 4 loss team, even though they're a big branded team, I don't think that they should get it just because they're an independent, school. I think almost at that point you get in an extra Big 12 team, even if they might, like I said, if they have 3 losses and at least make the championship game or something like that, I think that almost outweighs Notre Dame being as an independent, not playing a championship game, and if you lose 3 or 4 games, I think that makes a difference.
Yeah, I think the cutoff is going to be 2 games. That's all you can afford to lose, and you might still miss out on the playoffs. You're gonna be in that 9 to 12, 13 range. I mean, you look at Oklahoma was 10-2 last year, and they were, I believe, 14th at the end of the year when the college football rankings came out. So I think if you have of course if you have 0 losses or 1 loss, I think you're in. If your second loss is in a conference title game, you're in. But if you don't make the conference championship, I think two, you're putting yourself in some dangerous territory if you don't have that marquee win. So if you look at like Penn State the last couple of years where they don't have the marquee win because they have Michigan and Ohio State, like they had to beat one of those two teams to get a marquee win. They lose to them both the last 2 years. You don't have a marquee win at 10-2. I don't know if it's good enough if you would repeat that again to get in.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure.
All right. So I think that's all we have right now on the playoff picks that was presented by CBS. So let's move on now to our top five mascots. I'll be doing the Big Ten mascots, and Jay will be doing the SEC. So let's get started. I'm going to go 5-1. At number 5, I'm going to put the Nittany Lion in from Penn State. I'm not going to, not going to try to be biased here. Whenever I go to a Penn State game, I mean, the Nittany Lion is always keeping the crowd into it, leading the chants, and during pregame, I mean, he really gets the crowd going. So that's why I have the Nittany Lion at number 5. Who do you have at number 5, Jay?
Number 5, I got Smokey for the Tennessee Volunteers. And that's what I like about the SEC is a lot of teams have a live animal mascot and they have an actual mascot. So I think it's pretty cool. Obviously, I kind of did more of like 4 out of my 5 have live animals. And I think Smokey's just a cool dog. He's a beautiful dog, and I think it fits that Tennessee atmosphere.
Yeah. Penn or Big Ten doesn't believe in live mascots. The best you can do is the horse from the Traveler horse from USC in the Big Ten, as far as live ones go. Yeah, the Big Ten's just filled with big-headed mascots, basically. Which brings me to my number 4. I'm going with Brutus Buckeye from Ohio State. You know, he's a caricature. He's just a normal person with a big old Buckeye head, and he's entertaining too. He keeps the crowd going in all the matchups, and I think he brings an element to the games that keep the crowd involved, and he's fun to watch.
Yeah, those OSU fans, they love their Brutus, and Buckeye is just such a unique nickname and mascot. And like you said, anybody out of Ohio like really doesn't even know what a Buckeye is. You know, Growing up, I always thought Buckeyes were like the peanut butter balls that you make at Christmas that you like dip in chocolate, but it's some tree nut,
Right,
and
right,
it's just one of those unique Big Ten mascot nicknames.
right.
My number 4 would be Albert the Gator for the Florida Gators. He's just a legit mascot. He brings a whole bunch of energy to that swamp country. They dig into it. They do the alligator clap. I think he's just an electric for that atmosphere down in Florida. And he's just a cool mascot.
Yeah, for sure. Whenever you can get, just all you gotta do is the gator chomp down there, get them all going. The swamp, with the swamp, with the weather, with it being so humid. I mean, the swamp lives up to its name, and having the gator there definitely gets the crowd going. Number 3 for me, I'm going with another goofy looking mascot. I'm going with Sparty for Michigan State. Sparty with his big old arms and his big head and his helmet and his fake ripped body. I think Sparty gives off he's a Spartan. It's cool. He keeps the crowd. That's the mascot's job, is keep the crowd into it and get them going, and just to have something that looks so goofy but yet be cool is why I put Sparty at number 3 for me.
Yeah, and Spartans are it's just like a good nickname. It can be very intimidating, but yeah, like you said, they kind of like cartoon him up and kind of Popeye him up and make him strong and all buffed out. But yeah, Spartans are just like a cool, intimidating nickname to definitely get behind in an atmosphere. My third one is everything's bigger in Texas. They do Bevo, and he's a huge Longhorn. Him and Uga got into it. When they played in some bowl game or whatever. It's always fun to see like the live animals interact with each other, and like I said, you just can't beat it. Everything's bigger in Texas. They love it.
Yeah. Whenever they trot him out, around the field, and like you said, he got into the altercation there with Uga. That's an element that the human mascots don't bring, is getting it to like that. Except Sebastian from University of Miami, when he got arrested at the Florida State game. You
Yeah.
can't forget that. So that was one of the legendary mascot moments, is when you see the Florida State cops lugging Sebastian out in handcuffs in the middle of a game. But yeah, that's one thing with the live mascots. It brings an element of danger per se, because they are a wild animal. They're a live wild animal, so those are always cool. Number 2, I'm going with the live mascot per se in the Big Ten with Traveler, the USC Trojans, with the horse is named Traveler. They run out to the middle of the field. The guy in the Trojan outfit stakes his sword in midfield, gets the crowd going. Very similar to Florida State's one. But Traveler for USC is very cool, and then he just roams back and forth on the sidelines until a touchdown scores, and he's back out running. So he's always got a presence on the field. He's big old horse. So you can always find Traveler on the field and, just pacing the sidelines, waiting for USC to do something good.
Yeah. The USC Trojan is always another one that it's just a warrior going into battle. Like I said, people get hype. It's an easy thing to get people hype with, and especially the sword strike. Like I said, it gets everybody ready and going. For me, my number two is another one that has a live mascot and an actual mascot, and that'd be LSU. Mike the Tiger is extremely intimidating. Like they have him like near the stadium in like a windowed like zoo like experience that you can go right up to him. Obviously, he can't go close to the field, but the actual mascot, down in LSU, that it's a super hard place to play. Like if you have an away game at LSU, whether you're Alabama, Georgia, Ole Miss, it is such a hard place to play, and that mascot keeps them going. There's a lot of tigers nicknames and stuff like that, and it's just an intimidating animal. Just gets them going down there.
Yeah, for sure. Like I said, you have a real live tiger just near the field that the players have to run by. It's kind of insane when you think about it. And then to have the human mascot too with it, and it just makes that Death Valley atmosphere even more crazy. My number one, I don't think there's any other choice. If you look at all the Big Ten teams, there's no other choice. I had to go with the Oregon Duck. I mean, he's a star on game day every time game day shows up there in Eugene. He rides a motorcycle. He does push-ups. He does anything and everything. I mean, the Oregon Duck is, if you were to do a entire college mascot, I mean, Oregon Duck might rank number one out of all the mascots just because of how cool he is and all the stuff he does. And, just all the skits he's done with Lee Corso over the years on game day. The Oregon Duck is, I mean, he does it all. I don't think there was really a debate when it comes to the Big Ten mascots, with the Oregon Duck being number one.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, him riding out on that motorcycle has become iconic. And it's just, yeah, like you said, he's just great. And it's always kind of comedy filled too. When I remember when they played somebody, some no name school, and they put up like 70 something points. And he's having to do all these push ups. He can barely do any more. He just makes it funny. He brings a lot of energy and just comedic relief to the game. For sure. My number one, unlike you, I am being biased. I'm going to go with the Georgia Bulldog, Uga. Again, we have a live animal and a mascot, which I think both are cool. Uga is just, to me, is iconic. They always have him on the sideline. They got his ice bath in his doghouse. He's got air conditioned doghouse, and then you got the actual mascot who, I just think is cool. He looks cool. He always has his jersey on. Gets the people in Sanford, up and jumping around. To me, that's as best as it gets is Uga.
Does he still have the spikes for shoulder pads?
Yep.
I remember when we went to the Kentucky. Yeah, I remember. I remember going to Kentucky when we went to the Kentucky-Georgia game, and he was there. I mean, it was an away game, and he's just roaming the sidelines, and Georgia travels well, so it was almost like a home game there. But yeah, definitely when you think mascots, Uga's always going to come up. Looking at some other mascots that didn't quite make the cut. If you look in the Big Ten, we got a lot of weird ones. You got the Boilermaker, who's got the scary head. The Wisconsin Badger's pretty cool, with his little sweater and scarf and badger head. I don't know if you've seen the Rutgers Scarlet Knight. Like, the Rutgers Scarlet Knight's kind of cool. Just, another cartoony mascot. You look at the Iowa Hawk.
I was going to ask does Indiana have a mascot at all?
No, I didn't see I went to the Penn State Indiana game a couple years ago. I did not see a mascot. I don't know what your mascot could be, because I looked it up because I was like, what the heck's a Hoosier? And a Hoosier is just somebody that lives in Indiana. So I don't know how you could make a mascot of it.
So
And then you look at Michigan. Michigan
so the
doesn't really have
fans
a
are the
mascot.
mascot.
Right, exactly. Then you look at Michigan with the Wolverines. They don't have a mascot really. Minnesota Golden Gophers, he's just kind of, just a gopher head. So he doesn't really pop out in the rankings. The Maryland Turtle. Can't forget about him either. The Terrapin.
Yeah, he's a cool one. I like him.
Yeah, but I mean, he just didn't make the cut because I mean, maybe it's because Maryland hasn't been really great at football, so they never have that really great home atmosphere for football. Trying to think if there's any other. Nebraska's got the farmer with the red overalls and all that. But yeah, those are just some of the mascots that didn't make the cut. Do you have any that didn't make the cut?
Yeah, for sure. I'm sure some Auburn fans are gonna be mad at me that I didn't. I think his name's Aubie or Augie.
Mm-hmm.
He's another Tiger, um, and he's very popular. He is a huge known mascot down for the SEC, and that's something I've never understood. Even following the SEC was the whole War Eagle thing. Like I said, they're the Auburn Tigers, but then when they open a home game, they have like the eagle fly down to the keeper or whatever, and they do
Mm-hmm.
like their War Eagle screech or chant. But it's definitely need to be mentioned. But just kind of lackluster talent over the last few years, kind of get the mascot down, down the rankings for sure.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's
But some
anybody.
other,
Go ahead.
and like I said, like a lot of SEC teams have the same nickname, like Georgia Bulldogs, and then you have the Mississippi State Bulldogs. You have Auburn Tigers, you have LSU Tigers. So a lot of them kind of go back and forth with the same thing, and then Texas A&M with the Aggies, and Oklahoma with them coming in the SEC. I'm not really sure what their mascot is as a Sooner. I know like when they open home games, like they come out with like a horse and buggy, and I've seen it
I think
crash
I think
before.
I
I
think the
don't know if
buggy
that's
is
their
the Sooner.
mascot or what.
Right. I think the buggy is the
Yeah.
Sooner. So I think the buggy is technically the mascot. So I
All
mean,
right.
if that's really the mascot, I mean, we're talking about buggy. It's not going to rank very high.
Yeah. Exactly.
um,
Exactly. But
South
I did have
Carolina's
some honorable
Gamecock.
mentions.
I think the South Carolina Gamecock deserves some attention. Like he's pretty cool and
Yeah.
unique with the Gamecock surname there. I think he usually does a pretty good job getting the crowd going as well.
Yeah, yeah, and back when when Spurrier was a coach there and stuff like that, like that, and environment, atmosphere was electric. And like I said, it's just unique. Gamecocks. You don't hear that nickname very often. And they have kind of like a cartoony kind of mascot that's definitely cool for sure. But other than that, I can't really think of anybody else in the SEC really that has like a cool mascot.
Yeah,
Like I
I
said,
mean, if
Ole
you're
Miss
looking
has
outside of the
one.
power,
I don't know.
yeah, yeah, if you're looking outside the Power Two conference, um, the Buffalo from Colorado would fall into your list probably if they were in the SEC with the Buffalo that they run around the field. Um, Trying to think what else is out there in Big 12 or ACC country. You have
Yeah,
anything
some of my
else?
honorable mentions were from the ACC. I love the FSU, Florida State, Chief Osola. Um, don't hate on me on the pronunciation of it, but going down to Florida, like I said, riding on that, he has a beautiful horse, goes and spikes the flaming torch on the in midfield. They do crazy. They do the what do you want to call it? The chant.
Yeah, the Tomahawk chant.
It's just an amazing atmosphere. Yep, yep. And then another one in the ACC that I really like is the Virginia Tech Hokie. Like another one that's just super unique. He's goofy, brings some comedic relief to the game of football. And then you go to any away game at Virginia Tech, they do the Sandman, and it's iconic.
Yeah, and I think in the Big 12, kind of the unique mascots, I think you got to look at the Jayhawk from Kansas. I mean, he's pretty cool looking as well. And then the Horned Frogs, TCU. They're pretty, you know, I don't know of any other teams named Horned Frogs, and, you know, deck them out in a uniform and a frog head and let them go at it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I can't really think of any other Big 12 ones or non Power 5
Hmm.
that has like really cool, mascots.
Yeah, so let's move on to now our team minutes. I'll get us started with the Penn State team minute. Some scheduling came out as far as, some game. Then Fox, CBS, NBC picked some games. Luckily for Penn State, none of their games have really been selected, so it leaves a very, very slim chance that the whiteout could be the Ohio State game. I wouldn't hold my breath for it, but technically it's still available. Big Noon didn't pick it yet, so technically Ohio State could be the whiteout game, even though I'm guessing it's probably going to be the UCLA game. It's probably going to be the whiteout at this point. But I mean, if we can get a whiteout for Ohio State, I mean that's going to be our biggest game of the season. It would be nice to actually have the biggest game of the season be the whiteout again. See, we haven't been able to do it for Michigan or Ohio State lately with the networks taking over. One interesting kind of tidbit: the scheduling is the West Virginia, the opening game of the year, still undecided when that's going to be played. There's rumors out there it could get moved to Thursday, Friday. No idea what time. There's rumors that it could be, Fox Big Noon. So it's really interesting, getting the, we're within 100 days of the season, and you don't exactly know 100% for sure what day Penn State's opening the season at West Virginia. My preference would probably be to be Big Noon, because then you get the pregame show, you get all the theatrics, and you don't have to play in You don't have to play in Morgantown at night, which could be a scary game for first game of the year. Also, some point spreads came out for some of the games. Some notable point spreads that came out was West Virginia. Penn State is a 10-point favorite. I was kind of surprised to see it get into double digits. My guess would be that would come down to probably about 8, probably by the time the game comes around. Because West Virginia is bringing a lot back. I think they could definitely build on their season from last year. They're returning their quarterback, so I could see that line coming down. At USC, Penn State's actually a 4-point favorite going to USC. So, Lincoln Riley gets to see a Big Ten defense, and we can get to see what's going there. Wisconsin, Penn State, like we said earlier, Penn State will travel to Wisconsin, where Penn State is a 6.5-point favorite right now. So that's kind of a big spread for a big road game there. And then Ohio State at home, which like I said, I'm hoping that we can get the white out for that. Penn State's actually a 3-point underdog right now for that one, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, with what Ohio State looks like they could be, 3 points isn't a whole lot. So um, that's all I got for Penn State right now. So, Jay, if you want to do your Georgia minute.
Yeah, yeah. Before I move on, I just had a couple questions of, so with the whole whiteout thing, you guys only schedule night games as the whiteout, as like
Oh,
a
yeah,
full
yeah.
whiteout.
Yeah,
Okay,
I
so
mean,
that's like
we'll,
what it bases on the night. Okay.
yeah, I mean, I think there's been maybe one day whiteout, but yeah, I mean, Penn State's going to save the whiteout for a night game. I think the networks realize, Penn State wants a night game, at least give us one night game so we can go all out and have it be a decent opponent. I know with how everything's going, it's probably, like I said, your biggest Ohio State. Ohio State's. It's going to be Big Noon probably, especially if both teams play how they should going up into that point. You could see both teams be undefeated going to that, and 100% if combined the teams only have 1 or 2 losses, that game's going to get picked up by Big Noon. But like last year it was against Iowa, which was probably our second biggest home game, second or third, depending on how you look at it, because we had West Virginia and then you had Michigan at home. So I think Iowa was probably the second biggest home game that year. We did Auburn before. We had Minnesota be the whiteout a couple years ago. That's just because weak schedule, and like I said, Fox kind of screws with us for the whiteout. But if we It's got to be at night. Other than that, I mean, you get the whiteout student section whiteout and stripe out games, and Penn State will always find a way to bring a dynamic atmosphere. Especially if the team's good, Penn State fans are always going to bring it. But the whiteout at night just brings that extra little kick.
Yeah, I understand. I just, like with it being such a like an atmosphere and bringing in that expense, you'd think that like you're hosting Ohio State, whether it's noon or 8, you'd want it to be top level, whiteout. But it makes
Mm-hmm.
sense that you want like a prime time game to show off the whiteout. I definitely
Yeah,
understand that for sure.
yeah.
Another thing I wanted to hit
It
on
just
was
hits. Yeah, it just hits
go ahead.
different under the lights with the whiteout. I mean, we went to the West Virginia game last year. It was a helmet stripe, so like just between the 40s was blue and the rest of the stadium was white. So Penn State will always find a way to bring an atmosphere, especially to night games. What else did you have?
Yeah, going to that game, I thought it was a whiteout because it was just the one stripe of blue. I just thought
Mm-hmm.
it was a whiteout. Um, with that West Virginia line, um, I would see it going down to probably minus 7.5. Come
Yeah,
game
yeah, that.
time, they were favored by a decent amount last year, being a home game for Penn State, and they covered. I think it'd be perfect for 7.5. You have to win by more than a touchdown. I think that will definitely be a really hot number. I don't think it will go under 7. And then, and I was surprised to see that Penn State is favored going to USC. It'd be interesting on like who they play before that, and kind of like where they got to travel to, and if it's like a bye week and then they go to California. But I was surprised to see that Penn State was a road favorite for that one.
No, I think it just speaks to USC being down. A lot of unknown with USC. New quarterback, new defense. I think it speaks more to the unknown of USC. And I know I believe it's the start of a rough stretch for Penn State. I think they go to like USC, they go to Wisconsin, they have UCLA. That's all within like a 4 or 5 week part there that I think gets ended with Ohio State. So that's like the start of the hard stretch is at USC. So we should kind of know what the team looks like before we head out there. But I think that line speaks more to uh, kind of the faith waning in Lincoln Riley.
Yeah, that's understandable. So for my Georgia news, starting off the bat with a commitment was we got Thomas Blackshear. He was a 4-star wide receiver right out of Savannah, Georgia. He was actually really recruited heavily by Tennessee, and we finally got him to commit over to Georgia. So I feel like that was a big commitment coming in for Georgia. Wide receivers are always, a dime a dozen, but to get true talent and playmakers, like you said, you got to keep the recruits that are in your backyard um, to stay in Georgia. And then it was 2 weekends ago, Georgia did their annual scavenger hunt, and people outside of Georgia, it's just an event that they put on for their like recruits for future classes and stuff like that. And they usually get the quarterbacks and running backs together, positional players together. They drive around campus in golf carts and do a scavenger hunt. They got to find Coach Smart, and it's just a huge like team building thing. They're traveling the campus, talking with Kirby and all sort of stuff, and they've been getting over the last, at least this year and last year, they've gotten huge like recruiting names to come for this scavenger hunt weekend, and it's been a huge weekend in May for the University of Georgia. But some of the names that had were scheduled to come out was 5-star tackle David Sanders. He's a number 2 overall recruit for the 2025 season. They had a 5-star quarterback, Jared Curtis, for the class of 2026. They had a 5-star linebacker, Zayden Walker. and they had a 5-star safety, Trey McNutt. But like I said, this event that they have created as like an annual event has actually done really well for recruiting. Like I said, you get these guys all on campus at the same time. And it's just fun, silly things that, it's not I don't think it counts as like an official visit, but they get to see everything that's good about Georgia.
Yeah, that's really cool. Always want them to do something special for the recruits and uh, have show them a special time. And if it's going to work for your school, you might as well keep doing it.
Yeah, it's actually become some type of like tradition now that it's like an annual thing. They do it. It's gotten a lot of a lot of traction over the last couple of years. Obviously, with winning national championships help, but it's always been a really good recruiting thing. Just something different.
Yeah, for sure. Like you said, if it's going to get you the big names down there, you got to do anything you do to get the good names because it's all about talent acquisition nowadays in college sports, whether it's through NIL, normal recruiting. The best team is always going to be have the most talent and have the best chance to make the college football playoff from there.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that'll do it for us for this week. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Going forward, I think we're going to start getting into some actual like team by team breakdowns and expectations. Because if you look, we have 16, 32, 34 teams between the Power Two conferences. A lot of content there. I think as the summer starts getting into swing here, we're going to start doing an episode per team type thing and really breaking it down for you guys and giving you guys our thoughts and opinions on teams. So that'll do it for us this week. Like, subscribe, review, all the good things that we need to grow this channel and community. And have a good one.
Yep. See you next week.